A lot of pressure. I'll let you go first with the performance.
Well, good morning. My name is Tony Marlow. I am the CMO at LG Ad Solutions. So we're in the CTV space, helping put some of the free content and advertising associated with it onto LG TVs. And I'm joined by the CMO of TD Bank, Tyrrell Schmidt. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
How's
And thank you guys for coming out on a Friday morning. Really, really great.
CES on a Friday morning.
CES on a Friday morning.
How many people still have their voice? I was hearing with this morning's sessions a lot of lost voices. But we are at CES. It is another year we're looking at it. It is interesting because there seems to be a big focus on the electronics component of Consumer Electronics Show. Mm-hmm. But I know with TD's values and the brand and the focus on people, I was hoping that we could take a little bit of a focus and look at the consumer, the people, human aspect of what's going on. So I might start by asking, have you seen an innovation this week that's out there, that's interesting, that meshes with what you guys are interested in?
Yeah, I have. Actually, my favorite thing that I saw, just because we are in banking, we have a big retail footprint. If you hear me talk about stores, we call our branches stores. And one of the things that we're working on doing is really innovating in those stores and bringing more digital to what we do. And we know people are craving that, our consumers crave that, and there are different ways to do that, whether through digital channels, but also this opportunity to kind of rethink and reimagine what the store of the future is. And so I saw yesterday, and I'm very excited. We have a meeting with our CEO, I think next week, to talk about next gen stores and their customer service reps that are virtual, which I think is very cool, right? If you can power that and you can provide advice and guidance through, virtual, it actually could really change the dynamics of how we bring things to market. What I also loved was they have an interactive kind of window display where you can show your product in a really interactive way and consumers can interact with it. And I think that's just a really, we do these to really make an impact. We view our stores as well as real brand moments. So they build visibility for our brand. And so if you can make that interactive and get consumers there and really interacting with what you have, I think that could be incredibly powerful. I next need to get the money to try that. So that'll be 2 weeks. I'll work on that.
I'm sure you can build the case.
That's right.
But it is interesting, and we were talking a little bit ahead of the session just in preparation. But it seems, marketer to marketer, we agree. At its essence, all marketing is really making a connection with a person.
It is.
Often a very specific audience, but at the end of the day, it is about these human connections with people. And in the space you're in, I'm really fascinated about this because there's a lot of talk about digital advertising. There's a lot of talk about more traditional media. But what is it that you do as essentially the marketing North Star for your brand and for your customers' experiences?
For sure.
What is it that you guys do to bring that human element into the picture?
Yeah, it's probably worth mentioning that human and this concept of people matter most is just at the core of everything we do. And that's true if you think about our purpose, which really drives everything that we get up in the morning to do. Our purpose is to enrich the lives of our customers, our colleagues, and our communities. And as our global CEO says often, what does that mean? It means that we are not in the business of selling a mortgage, but we are in the business of helping our customers, achieve a dream of owning a home. And when, so from a brand perspective, our brand promise in the US is unexpectedly human. And so that is really the how we deliver every single thing that we deliver. And so, we know that behind every transaction, and we see, millions and millions and millions of transactions, behind every transaction, we like to think that there's a human and there's a story behind each one of those transactions, whether it's a credit card transaction, whether you're making a deposit from your work, there is a story behind that. And so we are here to serve our customers. And so that's what we're all about.
I like that. And within the financial services space, not everyone has, not your competitive set, not everyone has taken that path. For TD, is it a matter of purpose? Like you talk about every transaction, there's a story behind that. There's a person behind that. Does this ladder up to a set of values or a core purpose, a guiding principle that drives all of this?
It does, and that is around the enriching lives. But I think, and you asked earlier about customer experience. So for us, we believe in delivering legendary experience, and you can only do that if you've got if you are unexpectedly human. So we bring human elements in very wild ways. So this is way before my time. Part of our legacy, we have dog biscuits in our stores, we have lollipops in our stores. We have, legendary wow is kind of how our frontline thinks. I think the real opportunity that we have, though, is getting everybody in the organization, including risk, including every single function, to think about their role in delivering the brand and delivering the customer experience. So for TD, we know that, call it 65% of our brand health comes from the experience we deliver. So the brand is the promise, and we're telling customers, that we're the most convenient bank delivered through unexpectedly human ways. If we don't deliver that, actually, America's Most Convenient Bank is it's on everything. And so if we don't deliver, we get called out. And so we need to make sure that it's not marketing's job alone to own the brand and to own the customer experience. And so we've always done that. People understand it, especially at the front line. But we need our risk partners, our credit partners, our IT partners, our call center colleagues, everybody thinking about that and delivering in that way.
I love that. That's amazing. And we do have a lot of marketers in the room. I have to ask, is there a transformation story behind that? Have you gone from good to great to legendary? Was there a coordinated effort to take this path? Because you're talking about a current state that sounds pretty healthy. Have you really had to work toward that point?
Yeah, I would say we are still very much in a transition. So I started as CMO in the US probably 2 years ago. And I was mentioning to Tony that when I did my listening tour, and I was in Canada, so I was with TD, but I did my listening tour and I said, what do you think of marketing? And people were like, oh, the creative's great. And it actually is. It is phenomenal creative. I can't take credit for it. We have a great team of people who have been doing that. It's what allows us. We're very conversational. Our tone of voice, our approachability is different to that point. But people are like, oh, the creative's great. And so now we're really, the transition is to really look at two things. Number one, to making, to bringing that down to a growth story so that people, deeply understand that marketing, we do contribute a lot to growth, but the potential is even more so. And the other transformation is getting everybody, as we think about unexpectedly human, the world has changed. And so people, our consumers, think of ease, value, and advice. And so we are on this journey to actually get everyone to, whether it's through how we, human design in our digital channels, it's just everything, it's everybody's job to deliver on that. And so we're kind of rolling that out at the moment as we evolve the brand.
It's interesting as I hear you talk through that, it makes me, again, bringing it back to CES, it makes me think of innovation. And so, again, we've got a few marketers in the room from a marketing organization perspective, but also from a company perspective. How do you foster a spirit of innovation for your org and for your company so that you can deliver on the brand promise to your customers at the shop fronts?
Yeah. And we think about innovation in two ways. From a marketing perspective, it's more of a philosophy than, we actually measure it exactly this way, but we think of 70% being kind of tried and true. So we want to make sure that we are using our dollars and knowing the outcome that we're going to get to an extent. We use about 20%, which is kind of what we think of as incremental innovation, small I innovation, like test and learn and those sorts of things. And then another 10% would be, let's try something really new, really different. So that's one thing. And then we have a great innovation team. We have a huge design thinking team who, look across North America. So it's a big focus of ours. And, we may not take really all the big, huge bets jumping into the metaverse. We were talking about that earlier, and the $200 million investments you can make. Well, we look at who can we partner with? How do we try this out? How do we, do more?
I like that. And then You did touch on this on the previous question, but how did you consider the customer needs in, we were talking about good to great to legendary. How did you consider the customer needs on that journey? So you've got a lot of things going on where you're pointing at innovation, you're pointing at this unexpectedly human value, which is somewhat your North Star, from what you describe. How do you make sure the customer is considered on all of those things that need to occur in order to deliver on that brand promise?
Yeah, we have a huge belief in insights, the importance of insights, and whether that comes from our primary research studies that we do, whether it comes from secondary sources. We study things like JD Power, which really measures everybody. We work with Bain right now on Prism, and they can help you really deeply understand your customer's experience at moments within a journey at a very, very deep level. So we do all of that. I think one of the most interesting things that we have, a couple of years ago, we relaunched our customer experience strategy and our measurement approach. And so we measure on the back, and we have rich insights that tell us exactly how we're doing. It's really great for transactional data, the way that we've set it up. So we know at every interaction, are we delivering legendary? We ask that question, and people get all 100%, all 100,000 TD colleagues get compensated in some way, shape, or form based on customer experience. So we all are involved in that. We are evolving, though, to also relationship customer experience metrics, which will help us, understand the long tail, not just in the moment in the interaction. So we measure, we understand, and we build and design around that.
So much in what you just said. I love the measurability, but the literally asking the question, did you deliver legendary?
Yes. Yeah.
I love that. That's really cool. Mm. We could take something from that. Obviously, I'm with one of the CTV players. I want to talk about media, but before I do, one last question on the overall experience. Is the notion of authenticity. So you've spoken about a pretty sincere effort to make those human connections. What's to stop a competitor coming in and just saying, we're your local bank too, we're unexpectedly human? What is the secret sauce to deliver that authenticity? Because I suspect no one is in that position to do what you have done, but do you feel well entrenched to own the space you're in?
We do, because it is so ingrained into our organization, and we've been doing it for a long time. So I got an email this morning saying, what are we doing about the fact that JD Power in one of their studies says TD nationwide from the top banks is number one in people. And so we know we have that strength. What we really need to do, though, is to evolve the definition of people so that our colleagues don't think, oh, it just means in person, because it can't just mean in person. And so we do that. I think authenticity is critically important to everything that all of us do. I've heard a lot of other people talk about it. You get called out. People, they can read through it if it's not genuine. And if you're not delivering, and like I said earlier, we have America's most convenient bank on our doors and unexpectedly human. And people are not afraid to say, this isn't convenient. And so being able to pull, to really understand that, we have a whole thing that we call irritants. So we understand the top customer irritants and really work to knock them down so that we're constantly meeting the expectation that we're setting. By when we say that, the experience has got to measure up. When we don't, we have something that we call recover with flair. And so that means, for big things, we go out, we'll recover with flair and make sure that, we get it right for our customers, because we don't always.
For those of you on social, how many quotables are there right here? I hope you're out there on LinkedIn. Recover with flair. Okay. Now, I really do want to talk a little bit about media. And we were talking, just to share my perspective, we're observing from our seat what we call a big shift, and a big shift in viewing habits, a big shift in consumer behaviors. So essentially, with the onset of the pandemic in 2020, I'm sure everyone in the room experienced this as well. People were at home, they were consuming more television. Eyeballs drifted from linear towards streaming television. And that was the start. That was phase one of the big shift, if you will. Right now, we're in the midst of the second phase. So that first phase was really underpinned by subscription. got my Netflix, my Disney Plus, I'm paying a fee. Now we're seeing widespread adoption, widespread acceptance of ad-supported CTV models. And so under the subscription services, there were, other than product placement, there was not really an opportunity for a marketer to make a connection with the audience in this environment. But now, and we did a piece of research that showed 7 in 10 CTV users in the US actually prefer ad-supported models. I mean, if you asked that question 2 years ago, that would be a near zero number.
Yeah.
So it's the preference now. So I want to ask you, and we spoke about this a little bit, how does CTV figure into your picture? Because there are a lot of world-class marketers right now that want to do CTV, some of the best, and I think not everyone knows how to do it well yet. Does that mesh with your experiences? How are you thinking about CTV right now?
Yeah, it does. And it is something we've been doing for a couple of years. And so, we are not the biggest spender in our category. You look at some of the, massive global banks, and we are outspent a lot, actually. And so we have to really work hard to make sure that what we're saying is relevant, that it's personalized, and it's reaching the right audience. And we have to do it in a way that is really cost effective. And so CTV has been a key part of that. A couple of years ago, we started to really test into it. This year, we will spend more on CTV than linear TV. And we view it as just kind of an overall part of our mix. So we look at full funnel when we do our media planning. We also plan by geography. So TD, for those of you who may not know, runs from Maine down to Florida. We are in the process of an acquisition, which will give us a much broader footprint that we're excited about. But we have different, our history is different in those places. Our brand strength is different. Take Boston. In Boston, we have the TD Garden, which we love. We sponsor the Bruins and the Celtics. And so everybody knows TD, right? So our awareness is very high. We don't need linear TV to reach broad swaths of the population there. But we do need to get our message out in ways that are, relevant through video. And so we will use CTV there to drive consideration and to drive frequency in a really cost-effective way. The other reason why we love CTV is because we can, it's much more real time. We can measure it. We can, we're not yet in attribution really in a great way. We struggle with that a little bit holistically. But what's great about TV, linear TV can take us months and months and months still to plan. CTV gives us a lot more flexibility and test and learn.
I love it. And it is interesting. We spoke about this also a little bit beforehand, but we were talking about the notion that, yes, in the days gone by, you had to choose between being a brand marketer or being a performance marketer. For TD, you guys have to do both. You have to establish your brand, understand where to dial it up, where to dial it down, what's required, but also you have performance products that can convert, that are highly measurable. So when we talk about CTV and we talk about other emerging media, are you embracing this notion of being a performance storyteller and not having to choose one path or the other?
Yeah, I don't think you can choose one path or the other. Certainly not in our company. Actually, performance marketing, but it starts at the top of the funnel, goes right the way through. Performance marketing is how I also get more brand dollars, to be honest, right? If you can demonstrate that what you're doing is driving cost-effective growth every day, all day. We're really fortunate. Our CEO, our heads of consumer bank and commercial bank, they deeply believe in marketing. We've had historic strength and not to suggest we haven't been doing a great job with performance, but we've had historic strength in brand. And now it's really about telling the growth story that comes through knowing, what you're trying to do through each stage of the funnel.
It's interesting. And you talk about the funnel and the media mix. And, maybe we're in a little bit of a biased position, but from what we observe, fears about economic headwinds from a consumer perspective, from a business perspective, seem to potentially be fueling an acceleration of investment into newer media, right? So it may not be what everyone expected. I think the expectation was unilateral slowdown, maybe ad dollars dial back a bit. But I think what we're observing is an increased migration from, say, linear TV into connected television and going to these more efficient routes. So Obviously, you're in the financial services sector. I'm assuming you've got your finger on the pulse with where everyone believes the broader macroeconomic conditions are going. Do you consider that in adjusting your media mix planning? Do you consider that as you move forward for let's do more in XYZ, whether it's CTV or regular digital? Is that a part of the consideration?
It is. I think the what's going on in the economy really dictates a lot of our messaging. So, for example, we know that 41% of Americans feel worse about their financial situation and would consider themselves being financially vulnerable than they did a year ago. So it's, we need to be there. We need to help people. They have, very differing needs than maybe they even had, just a year ago. So it really, really drives content. But I think getting ever more efficient, the ability to talk one-to-one to customers or audience, to reach your customers in ways that are relevant. I think CTV does that, right? And it just allows you to tell a more targeted story, and that helps you drive efficiency. Yeah.
I love it. And so we want to make sure we leave enough time for folks in the audience to ask questions. So I'll finish and I'll do the same. Do you have any predictions for 2023 before we open up questions to the audience?
Yeesh. Yeah, well, predictions wise, and I think everybody is it's an interesting time in the world, right? Just holistically. So I think people stopped making really bold predictions a while ago. But, I really do think, and I know I heard Raja yesterday and other people, I think there's a sense of emerging optimism. And, I really hope that holds, bringing through all of the good things from the pandemic, but also being able to kind of get to a place. It's just so awesome to be here with so many people, right? And so when you talk about things like human connection, people have craved that. We all know that. And, so I think with optimism, human connection, this year should be great.
I love it. And for what it's worth, I think from our seat, if 2022 was the year of FAST, and for the uninitiated, that's free, ad-supported streaming television. So for us, on an LG TV set, there's LG channels, 350 plus channels, it's free, and it's ad-supported. So that would be considered FAST. If 2022 was about FAST, I think 2023 is going to be faster. I think we're going to see more content deals, more content available, increased usage, more eyeballs. And I think within that space, all attention is going to go to this free aspect. Earlier in the week, LG had a big announcement with Paramount. More and more content. I think you're going to see more news like that. The consumer's going to win. The marketer gets an opportunity to connect with people in the largest screen in the home. These win-win scenarios don't come around a lot. So that's my prediction for what it's worth. Okay, so we've got a couple of minutes. Do we have some questions from the audience? Is there a microphone? Okay, let's go with the yell option.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Brian Schaff, TechRecipes.com. This is a two-part question. So you mentioned cost-effective growth. One, how are you defining that? And then two, as the recession, or if it continues to come, right? Are you looking for more boutique solutions in order to drive your non-working costs down and your ROI up, or are traditional models still being prioritized?
Yeah, those are both good questions. So let me start with the second one. I think because of the way that TD's grown up anyway, we have a lot of boutique solutions generally. We have a group of partners that we work with incredibly closely. Just to put it in perspective. So we work with Ogilvy at a North American level. We work with David in the U.S. And for those of you who might know them, they're more of a boutique kind of agency. So because we really work to make every dollar work hard, we will continue with that solution. But I think it's interesting. I think some of those traditional models for as we go through what is an interesting economic cycle, I think you will start to see more of that. The other thing we've done at TD, you got me on TV, at TD is we built our own in-house studio. And so we've been growing that studio. We have our own content developers. We have, I don't know, probably if I think about it between corporate and public affairs and what we do in marketing, we have probably 50 people in-house. And so that's given us great leverage. So, we can use some of the more traditional solutions at the top of the house, and then we can bring it down in ways that are just people who deeply understand the brand, live the brand. So we've been doing that. Remind me again of your first question, as I just talked too long on your second. Cost-effective growth. How do we define it? That is the question. So we really look at what we call SVA, which is kind of like a lifetime value measure. And so that is, that's what we do. We look over the life of a loan or those sorts of things. We tend to look at, for us, we do a lot of digital online. And so at the bottom of the funnel, we're looking at things like, we're looking at our cost per approved account and those sorts of things. The other thing, there are some really interesting solutions and companies that measure, particularly in financial services, they'll measure who is driving the most efficient growth. And so all of the banks, for example, many of the banks, we all submit privately, like here's our cost per account, here's the customers we're getting. So they know a lot. And so we also measure ourselves and benchmark ourselves to our peers in the industry. We will see groups. So for TD, they'll show us, here are the nationals, we have a peer-defined peer group, and our TD-defined peer group that we'll measure ourselves against. So yeah, and there's pros and cons of being, we are very efficient. Pros and cons of that. It also means that we are leaving profitable growth on the table. So we're in the process right now of really looking at a much more, more of a flex funding model where, we can spend as long as we're driving profitable growth. And we have the threshold measured for that and agreement with finance.
It's great. And I think we have just about time for one more. I think we've got one over here.
Yeah, we do a lot. My colleague here does a lot. So I will say we, but it's Jenny and her team do a lot on local marketing. So we do things like Google Local. And, one of the things that we're trying to do one is to capture consumers in their channel of choice. So omni-channel, which we probably didn't really talk about, but that's really the ultimate goal for us. So if somebody wants to go in a store, we can drive them that way through things like targeting them through Google Local, that's great. If somebody wants to transact with us online, we want to be there. And we also want to create, and a lot of what happens in our world is multi-channel. And so we are really, our real gold star is personalized, connected, and seamless experiences for customers as they transverse all of the many channels that we have.
Okay, fantastic. And we are just about on time. So with that, Tyrrell, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I learned a lot, and we've got some quotables.
Tony and Tyrrell.